Today, most of the top national teams are playing complex tactical football, but not all the managers have enough players to build the game they want. At that moment, those few players that are considered the best come to rescue the coach and drag the team. Surprisingly, this works even in the most prestigious tournaments. We have made a list of the best players that led their national teams to victory, all by themselves. But before that, we'd like you to take part in our quiz. Thanks to 4 goals by this player in the World Cup 1990, Cameroon national team managed to get to the quarterfinal. Who is it? Emmanuel Jerome Kounté, Roger Milla, Francois Omam-Biyik? Write your answer in the comments. And now we begin. Wesley Sneijder, World Cup 2010. The Inter Milan star and one of the best Dutch players was in his prime at the end of the 2000s. In spring, with Nerazzurri, they made the legendary treble, but in summer, another very serious test was awaiting him. The Netherlands had easily qualified for the final stage of the World Cup in South Africa, and they got drawn with the national teams of Japan, Denmark, and Cameroon. At that moment, Van Marwijk was in charge of the team, however nobody really believed in his abilities. In their first match, the Oranje won 2-0 against Denmark, and Sneijder was named the player of the match, although he didn't score or assist. In the match against Japan, he repeated that achievement, but this time he managed to score the winner. The Netherlands won the group stage and made it into the knockout to play with Slovakia. The game ended 2-1 in favor of the Dutch, and Wesley showed great play again. In the first half, he made an assist to Robben, and at the end of the match, he scored the winner, sending his team to the quarterfinal. But it's not about assists. In a very difficult match against Brazil in the quarterfinal, Sneijder scored 2 awesome goals against his club teammate Julio Cesar, giving a chance to his team to make another step towards the final. In the semi-final against Uruguay, he was named the player of the match once again, scoring 1 of the 3 goals. But it's not about the goals, but his play. Wesley was in the heart of attacks all the time, creating chances for his teammates. In the final, Sneijder created several great chances for Robben, but the latter was unable to use them. Wesley ran for 120 minutes and was one of the best in the Netherlands team. However, they lost. The Dutchman received the silver boot, although he had been wonderful throughout the tournament. Sneijder was worthy of winning the Ballon d'Or that year, but we all know who won it. Pelé, World Cup 1970. The king of football played in 4 World Cups, but only the last one became the most memorable for him. Next year, Pelé was going to end his international career at the age of 30, but his records are still hard to be broken by any footballer. The Seleção were drawn with quite serious teams like England, Romania and Czechoslovakia. Back then, these teams were much stronger than today, well, except the 3 lines of course. In the very first match against the Czechs, Pelé scored a goal and made an assist. The next game against England was a hard one, but his assist to Jairzinho decided the outcome. In the last match of the group stage, Brazil humiliated Romania 5-0, and the King scored 2 and made 1 assist. At that time, fewer teams took part in the World Cup, so right after the group stage quarterfinals started, Brazil managed to beat Peru 4-2 in a very dramatic match. Pelé made only 1 assist in this game, but he was passing to his teammates throughout the match, creating chances out of nowhere. In the semi-final, Pelé was the best in the attack, but managed to make only 1 assist. It's important to understand that Pelé wasn't trying to hog the blanket, but played solely for the interests of the team. The historic final ended for the Seleção in a brilliant victory, 4-1 over the Italians. Pelé played one of the best matches of his life, scoring a goal and making 2 assists. He was named the player of the tournament, although he had scored only 4 goals. It is hard to overestimate his efforts for Brazil's victory, as Pelé sacrificed his personal ambitions for the sake of his country. Luka Modric, World Cup 2018. The World Cup 2018 was a real breakthrough for the Croatian national team. They managed to get to the semi-finals of the World Cup for the first time in their history, and get prestigious silver medals of the tournament. But would it all be possible without their captain Luka Modric? Hardly. In his first match, the Real Madrid midfielder was named the player of the match, having scored a goal against Nigeria. Also, he took part in another attack of Croatia that ended in a goal. He repeated this achievement in the next game too, but this time it was Argentina that the Croatians humiliated 3-0. In the first playoff match against Denmark, Luka ran for 120 minutes, showing exemplary football in the midfield. He cold-bloodedly scored from the penalty spot, helping his team get into the quarterfinal. The next game against the hosts Russia was difficult and tiring. Modric made an assist, but the outcome was again decided in the penalty shootout. And again, the Croatians were lucky, and Luka of course scored easily from the spot. The semi-final game against England turned out to be a real test for the team. However, Croatia managed to get the victory in extra time. Modric spent 2 hours on the pitch, helping his team both in the attack and in the defense. But in the final, Croatia was unable to fight the mighty France national team, and they lost. Modric had a great tournament and became the best player, and at the end of that year he was awarded the Ballon d'Or, putting an end to a decade of Ronaldo-Messi winning streak. And he was 32 at that moment. Despite the low number of goals and assists, Luka Modric was a great leader and captain for his team, helping them reach a historic success. Roberto Baggio, World Cup 1994. Baggio is considered one of the best Italian forwards in the history of his national team. By the World Cup 1994 in the United States, he had been in his prime, having won the Ballon d'Or the previous year. All the tifosi had high expectations from their star forward. Baggio started dragging the team on his back already in the group stage, but Italy was showing quite mediocre football and finished only third. Luckily, this wasn't a problem in that World Cup, and Squadra Azzurra made it into the playoffs. In the round of 16, the Italians were very close to get relegated by Nigeria, but Baggio managed to score an equalizer in the 88th minute and send the game to extra time. In the 102nd minute, Roberto confidently took a penalty kick and helped the team to qualify for the quarterfinals, although Italy was not playing well. In the quarterfinals, Squadra Azzurra was to play against Spain, but this time they weren't bad at all. Roberto's namesake, Dino Baggio, scored the opener in the first half, but in the second half, La Furia Roja equalized. The match was even, and it was all going to extra time, but a couple of minutes before the final whistle, Roberto ran past the keeper and sent the Italians to the semi-final to play against Bulgaria. Divine Ponytail. It was Baggio's nickname because of his haircut. Scored 2 goals in 4 minutes already in the first half, securing a place in the final for Italy. In the final, the Italians were to face mighty Brazil with Dunga and Romario in the squad. The match was goalless for 120 minutes, and in the penalty shootout, the Seleção were luckier. The decisive shot was missed by Roberto himself. In fact, Roberto led Italy to the final, but let them down at the most important moment. When I lost that World Cup, I also lost the second Ballon d'Or and the FIFA World Player of the Year award, all with 1 penalty. Just Fontaine, World Cup 1958. The story of this genius French striker is pretty much sad. At 27, he retired from the national team because of a serious injury, and at 29 he ended his club career. However, he set at least one more record which can hardly be beaten in the near future. The World Cup 1958 was the first serious test for him, as before that Fontaine had been capped only a couple of times for some friendlies. At Nice and Reims, he was a goal machine, but when he came to the World Cup, he was a no-name and few had serious expectations from him. In his first match against Paraguay, Fontaine scored a hat-trick. Then he scored 2 against Yugoslavia and another one against Scotland. The Blues finished first and were drawn against Northern Ireland in the quarterfinal, which was humiliated 4-0. Just scored the half of those goals. In the semi-final, the French faced mighty Brazil, and this time they were the ones to take the balls out of their goals. They had no chance against Seleção, conceding 5 goals, including a hat-trick by young Pelé. But still they managed to score 2, one of which was under Fontaine's belt. France were still to play against Germany for 3rd place, and these times Just indeed had a lot of fun. The Frenchmen scored 4 goals and the Blues won 6-3. Like in tennis, Just Fontaine became the top scorer of the tournament with 13 goals in 6 matches. For comparison, Pelé was the second with 6 goals. Since then, Just has been unquestionably holding the record for the number of goals in a single World Cup. Zinedine Zidane, World Cup 1998. Already in the 1996 World Cup, Zidane was a first-team member of the France national team. But he was far from being a star yet. He was a very promising footballer and there was a lot to prove to the fans. And that's exactly what Zizou did. In the first game of the World Cup 1998, hosted by France, Zidane was named player of the match. He made an assist against South Africa. His role was not scoring goals, but starting attacks and creating dangerous moments. Zidane missed 2 matches because of a red card and returned only in the quarterfinal. He played another decent match and scored the first penalty kick in the shootout against Italy. France eventually qualified for the semi-final. Against Croatia, Zidane played more in the defense, helping the Blues win, but his best game was the final against Brazil. Zizou scored 2 out of 3 goals, sending the ball into Taffarel's net with his head. The French won the World Cup title for the first time in history, and Zidane was awarded the Ballon d'Or by the end of that year. Zizou had a great tournament, and his game is still a textbook example. Zidane proved to the whole world that you can successfully combine defensive duties in the midfield with attacking creativity. Of course, you may write in the comments that the France national team back then was showing a team game and won the title not with the help of one footballer, but Zidane was the cherry on the top. Diego Forlán, World Cup 2010. Unlike Sneijder, Forlán was a member of a national team with much lower ambitions and a more modest squad. The Uruguayan forward was 31 by that World Cup already, but this was not the case when age caused problems. Uruguay won their group with the hosts of the tournament, South Africa, Mexico and France. The first match against the Frenchmen was a goalless draw, but Forlán proved himself as a great playmaker and a forward, creating a lot of chances in the opponent's penalty box. That's why he was named player of the match. South Africa was beaten by Uruguay 3-0 and Forlán scored 2, becoming player of the match once again. Uruguay finished first and was drawn to South Korea in the round of 16. Forlán played an attacking midfielder, finding himself deeper under Cavani and Suarez. Thus, he made an assist. In the quarterfinal against Ghana, Diego played as a striker. He scored the only goal for his team, but the match ended 1-1. We all remember the episode at the end of the match when Suarez made a save with his hand, and Gyan didn't score from the spot. The outcome was decided in the penalty shootout. La Celeste were luckier and more skillful. Diego scored his kick and was named player of the match again. In the semi-final, Forlán faced Sneijder and eventually lost. They both scored, but the Netherlands were just better. The third-place game was lost to Germany, but Diego scored in that match too. Forlán was named the best player of the tournament, winning the World Cup Golden Ball. He did all he could, and even more, to bring success to his team, but it was not enough to get through to the final. Diego Maradona, World Cup 1986. The Golden Boy has been the main competitor of Lionel Messi for the title of the greatest footballer in Argentina's history. After a failed spell at Barcelona, Diego moved to Napoli, becoming a superstar before the World Cup 1986. The Albiceleste won Group A with no big problems. In the first match, Maradona made 3 assists against South Korea, winning Player of the Match award. Interestingly, he played as a center forward, but didn't score a goal. Then he started playing deeper in the midfield, but regularly sent the ball into opponents' nets and made fewer assists. For instance, in the next game against Italy, he scored the only goal of his team. but the game ended in a draw. The Argentine was unbelievable, but his main action that brought him a worldwide fame happened in the quarterfinal against England, who were considered strong title favorites. The first half was a goalless draw, but in the second, Diego created history. In the 51st minute, he did the hand of God, and 4 minutes later, he dribbled around the half of the opponents, sending the ball in the open net. This individual performance went down to history as the goal of the century. In the semi-final, Diego scored another brace, helping his team make it to the final. In the last match of the tournament, he made an assist, after which he raised the World Cup above his head. Diego received the World Cup Golden Ball and the Silver Boot too. Oliver Kahn and Ronaldo, World Cup 2002. We've had a hard time deciding on who should be in our list and realized it would be unfair not to mention both of these players. Let's start with legendary R9, for whom the World Cup 2002 was a real breakthrough. The same can be said about his national team. The Brazilians easily won their group, beating Turkey, China and Costa Rica. Ronaldo scored 4 goals in 3 matches. The winning streak of the future Pentacampeones had just started. In the round of 16, Ronaldo scored a goal against Belgium. In the quarterfinal, he remained silent, but in the semi-final, scored 1 and the only goal against the Turkish, sending his team to the final match against Germany. Now about Oliver Kahn. What was the path of the second main contender for the title? Many pundits thought that the Germany national team was an average one that could reach the quarterfinals at most. This was the only World Cup in Kahn's career as a first-team player. Interestingly, the German goalkeeper was in his prime in the World Cup 2002. He had not been a star before that, and after the tournament, he began stagnating. Oliver conceded a goal in the second match of the group stage against the Republic of Ireland. But after that, he kept a clean sheet up to the final. In every playoff match, the Germans won 1-0, although they faced relatively weaker teams: Paraguay, the USA and South Korea. However, Kahn was like a concrete wall in each game, making phenomenal saves. If not him, the Germans could have been knocked out much earlier. In the World Cup final, Oliver Kahn and Ronaldo faced each other. In the 67th minute, the German keeper made a mistake after a long shot, dropping the ball right in front of himself. R9 made use of the moment. In 12 minutes, Ronaldo scored again, winning the 5th title of the world champions for Brazil. He became the top scorer, and Kahn was named the best player and the best keeper of the tournament for his phenomenal play in the goals. Lionel Messi, World Cup 2014 and World Cup 2022. It is no secret how important Messi is for the Argentina national team. He has more privileges than any other player in the squad. Often the playing style and the lineup is matched to him. For example, Icardi is not called up to the national team because they are on bad terms with Messi. Icardi is poor now, but a couple of years ago he was a decent striker. In his first match against Bosnia and Herzegovina, Messi scored a goal, becoming the best player of the match. He repeated that against Iran, and in the last game of the group stage, he scored a brace against Nigeria. Thus, he was named player of the match in every game of the group stage. In the round of 16, Argentina had a hard time with Switzerland, scoring only in the 118th minute. Messi showed great dribbling, running from the center of midfield and assisting Di Maria. Again, Leo was named player of the match, 4th time in a row. In the quarterfinal, Argentina won against Belgium thanks to the only goal of Higuain. And in the semifinal, they managed to beat the Netherlands only in the penalty shootout. In the final, the Alba Celeste were defeated by Germany as Götze scored a goal in the 113th minute. Since the round of 16, Messi did not score or make an assist, but still he showed solid and efficient football of the highest level. Leo was named player of the tournament, but didn't make his dream come true back then. He did it in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar though. Lionel Messi was the engine of the Argentina national team and almost alone brought the title of the world champions to his country. He scored 7 goals, becoming the second top scorer, losing this title to Mbappe. But he's not too upset about it, as he was named Player of the Tournament, alongside the title of the World Champion. And the final match against France was one of the best games in Messi's career. Friends, which player's solo performance in the World Cups impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments, we're very interested to read them. Thanks for watching and see you soon.